you very much. I have a habit of moving around a bit, so let me just move some of these things out of the way, including myself. So, before we start, seeing that you have had lunch and then you've been sitting for a little while, why don't I just get you all to stand up for a couple minutes? Stretch a little, just don't hit the person beside you. I'll take off the name tag because I think I do know who I am. And then just start stomping your feet. Yeah, the people downstairs are going to be freaking out. But, oh, you're right into it. Okay, let's go. A little faster, a little faster. Come on, quick one. Okay, keep going, keep going. Okay, start clapping your hands. Really hard now, really hard, really hard. Oh, okay. A little harder. Okay. That's it. You can stop now. You can stop. Wow, that was wild. Sit down now, please. Sit down. I really appreciate that standing ovation. Thank you. You know, you said I would have to work hard for it, but it wasn't that hard. Okay, well, thank you all for coming today. And, you know, my session really is very simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to build the foundation for active aging and 9 principles of active aging and how to actually get there. This is wild. How do you use it? That's probably because it's a wrong one. Maybe this is like a fan or something like that. Okay. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to strip for a second. Okay, so I move around a lot, so it's much better this way, believe me. By the way, have any of you seen The Natural with Robert Redford? How many of you actually like Robert Redford? Okay, so in The Natural, basically they hit a ball to him and he was standing there and he did nothing and they said, oh, you suck. And then he asked, can I move? And they said yes, and they hit a ball, and he was amazing, and for the rest of the movie, he was amazing. So I move around a lot, so if you remember nothing else about this session, just remember I move just like Robert Redford. Okay? In case any of you are thinking anything, that's okay. All right, so here we go. Let's get started then. I'd like a very simple question asked, and that is, if you were given 30 additional years of life, what would you do with it? Just throw out things. This is going to be interactive. So I'm not just going to stand up here and speak to you. You're going to, oh, come on, right now. What's your name? David. David, I wasn't looking down. Okay, just tell me, what would you do? Travel. Okay, would you be fit enough to travel? Of course you look that way, yes. Anyone else? What else would you do? Play the piano. Learn a new skill, maybe? Anyone else? What would you do? Go to Iceland and see more aurora. Did I say that right? Excellent. At the end of the day, we would do maybe some of the things that we haven't done. Well, we now have an additional 30 years of life. I think most of you know it. The question is, what are we actually going to do with it? And how are we going to embrace the opportunity that is in front of us? Well, we are, whether we see it full-blown or not. What is actually happening with this additional 30 years of life is that the baby boomers especially have been setting about, by the way, how many of you are baby boomers? Isn't it wonderful? You know, at the turn of the 1900s when, you know, I'm from Canada, turn of the 1900s, the average life expectancy was about 47, so I am really glad that I'm living now and not back then. Okay, and that I can actually enjoy life, which is what we are actually in the process of doing. We're trying to enjoy more of life, and we see a quality of life revolution trying to help us to actually get to where we want by reinventing the life course. The life course used to look like this. It was very simple. You were born. How many of you were born? I'm just seeing if you're listening, okay? You're born, you would work. Matter of fact, you would learn early, but you would go into the fields or you would do some form of manual labor, and then you would retire if you lived that long. It was a good deal for the companies. It was short and predictable. Yet today, it is long and unpredictable. We're working much later in life. If some of us because we have to, some of us because we can, and we're enjoying it. We're caring for multiple families, some of them not even ours. You know, we're learning later in life. You know, many of us are taking sabbaticals. So what is happening is that we're in the process of actually renewing what it means to live longer and the life course that we choose to have. Our caveat is ill health. So what we're going to talk about today is very simple, and that is how to maximize this opportunity. Because each of us have been given this opportunity. Each of our customers have been given an opportunity. Each of our clients have been given the opportunity. Whether we actually take it or not is the question. So today we know that health equals wealth. If you are healthy, you're probably spending less on products and services for ill health. And if you are ill, you are probably spending a lot more money than you could or should be spending. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how the quality of life revolution impacts what we do, especially when it comes to older people. By the way, what is the definition of old? Does anyone know? 15 years older than you are. Or said another way, whatever your children say to you, you know, Dad, you're old. You know, I used to say that to my dad when he was 40, when he was 30. But you're right, 15 years older than you are. However, we never seem to be old ourselves. My 101-year-old or 106-year-old grandmother talks about those old people. So a lot of what we're talking about is up here. But to change what's up here, we also need to change the support that we offer each and every one of us. And what we're talking about when we're talking about an aging population, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I always wanted to say that, ladies and gentlemen, is us. We are all aging. So everything that we talk about today not only applies to our customers, but to us. Sometimes we forget that. We talk about them instead of us. Okay? So what we know today is that our current models are not designed to support a quality of life revolution and the new life course. You know, all we have to do is look at healthcare versus prevention. And on and on and on. The redefinition of retirement, transportation, all of these different things. So what we know is that whether it's the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, all of these different groups are calling for change. And change is happening. According to the report from the growing European silver economy in 2015, these are 12, I think it's 12, of the top new models or areas that new models are needed in. Today, we're just going to talk about the big ones, health and wellness. Okay. By the way, do you think health and wellness impact all of those other ones? Okay. We know the cost of ill health, but do you know the cost of health? Have you ever thought about it that way, the cost of health? What would you have to spend to be healthy? Gyms, new roadways maybe, different parks, all of these different things. So with every challenge there's an opportunity, and with every opportunity there is a challenge, and we're going to look at both of them as we go through. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about 9 different principles of active aging, a framework that you can build your competency or your programs or your marketing or your business or your policies around in a systematic approach, because many of us are doing really great things in silos. But how do we build it so that it's systematic? So at the end of the day, it's actually implementable right across the board, as opposed to just simply in my department or my area. That's another word, right? Those people, my department. It's our world. Okay? So, let's get started. As we go through the principles, ask yourself a couple of very simple questions. What is the cost of action? To do one of these, what would it actually cost? How would you implement it? And look at it in detail. then ask yourself, if I don't do it, what is the cost of inaction? Because sometimes we don't think about that. We just go to our bosses, or we're the boss, and we say, no, without thinking about what is the cost of inaction. And then what is the cost of reaction? Having to do that later down the road, once somebody else is doing it, or another department is doing it, or another area is doing it, and now you have to catch up to it. So with that said, are you ready to start? That's a long warm-up, isn't it? Yeah, you're going, man, I'm already tired. Okay, well, let's get going. So here's our organization, the International Council in Active Aging, has been at the, involved in the area of active aging for the last 15 years. Matter of fact, when we came up with our name, I remember Googling it, and Google had, I think, just come out around that time, or a little bit before that, and active aging was almost nowhere. There were only a few of the terms that were available, and it was really cool. And we came out with our own definition of active aging. The World Health Organization has it, many other organizations have it, but ours is very simple, and that is, how do you help people to remain engaged in life? Because if you're not engaged, you are what? Disengaged. And if you are disengaged, all hell begins to break loose. Okay? I know, because I have a father who is very disengaged in life, and all hell has broken loose. And who ends up picking up the bills? Thank you very much. Okay? So there is a ripple effect all the way down. So how do we help people remain engaged in life regardless of their age, socioeconomic status, or their health, in all the areas of health and well-being? And that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start at the start, and that is principle number 1. I feel like I'm in bingo or something. Under number 1. And it is perceptions. For us to move forward to address an older population, one of the first things we need to do is to really change perceptions of what it means to grow older. Many of us in this room maybe have already changed our perceptions, but at a societal level, we have some significant challenges. If you were to actually go to many communities and do talks like this and ask, what do you think about aging? Tell me, what are the words that pop into your mind? These are words that sometimes you will hear on a very consistent basis. Burden. Why is a person a burden? Many times they may be a burden because of what? Ill health. So if we can get someone to be healthier, to help them be healthier, would they be less of a burden? Would there be a lower cost? Would our view of what it means to grow older change? Probably. You know, challenged, invisible. And we'll talk about the invisible part a little bit later. Disease, disability, diminished capabilities in living. Have any of you heard these words before? Have any of you said these words before? Okay. The reality is that today is old thinking. Why is that? Well, that's based on our old model. When we talk about actually needing new models, the new model has to start up here in how we perceive growing older. So, after decades of research, what do you think the most exciting thing about growing older is that we know? There's so much, actually. How could you ever answer that question? But to me, it's this. Svajit Singh, I'm not sure if I pronounce his name correctly. I have been saying that for a few years now. Maybe I should learn how to pronounce his name. But anyway, that's a different conversation. Okay, he celebrated his 100th birthday running the Toronto Marathon and completing it. Now, why is this gentleman important to every single one of us in this room? It is because he shows us what we are capable of. Whether we embrace this capability and this potential, is in many instances our choice. Sometimes it's not our choice. But because of this, the Director General for the World Health Organization, when this occurred, came out and said, it's a new day. Well, it was a new day a few days before that. But anyway, she came out and basically said, we need to change our perceptions of how we view aging. And the reality is that we are in control in many instances, not all the time, but in many instances, in exactly how well we age. And those of us in this room assist us all in how well we age. So, our new thinking today is a little bit different, and it's around one word, and that is potential. How do I, as an individual, or as an allied health professional, or as anyone in society, embrace my potential? And what is potential? Potential is basically unrealized abilities. So my unrealized abilities may be very different than your unrealized abilities. And one of the things we have to do is to stop comparing ourselves against other people. I always look at Richard Gere and go, that's not going to happen. He's just tall, this is short. Okay? He's skinny, this is just a brute. Okay? It's just not going to be the same. Okay? And the reality is, we'll see the reality in a second. So what I'd like to do, actually, and wow, that was great, the video is working. What I'd like to do is take 2 seconds, well actually it's about 4 minutes, for you to watch a video that sets the stage for our potential and where we can go.
我是王德顺，地地道道的沈阳人。一场 T 台走秀，让很多人认识了我。有人叫我最帅大爷，也有人说我一夜爆红。可是你知道吗？为了这一天，我足足准备了60年。24岁，我当话剧演员。44岁开始学英语，49岁创造了造型哑剧，到北京成了一名老北漂，没房没车，一切从头开始。50岁，我进了健身房，开始健身。57岁，我再次走上了舞台，创造了世界唯一的艺术形式。它叫活雕塑。70岁，我开始有意识地练腹肌。79岁，我走上了 T 台。我今年80岁了，还有梦，还有追求。相信我，人的潜能是可以挖掘的。当你说太晚了的时候，你一定要谨慎，它可能是你退却的借口。没有谁能阻止你成功，除了你自己。该炫自己的时候，千万不要对自己收了。我是王德顺，我是最炫东北人。
So I want you to think about this question, and that is, what would society be like if we all embraced our potential? And we all help people to embrace their potential. How different would it be than it is today? So, what happens when you have 85% of people between the ages of 40 and 90 who don't see themselves as old, and they're embracing their potential? One thing, change. And that's where we are today, is that perceptions are changing, as are our expectations. So one of our challenges moving forward is that there is actually a huge expectation gap currently between what we expect. We expect that technology is going to work. We're not buying something for it to feel like it was a 1960s transistor radio, unless you're buying a 1960s transistor radio. We're buying technology to be the latest and the best. We're coming to you for the newest and the latest and the best. Okay, our expectations are going to be much, much higher. So our game has to be much, much higher. Attitudes are changing. Remember when your mother or you would tell your mother, you can't wear this. This is my clothes. You need to wear clothes that are for old people. Or maybe this is the clothes for old people today. The older population, especially older women, are the it girls right now for the fashion industry. So what about us? How do we make the older population the it population for what we're doing? Well, we need to rethink what we do. We need to rebrand some of our services, the terminology that we use. We need to rebuild everything and re-educate our customers, but with a new end in sight. Our challenge is a lot of the new things that we try and do are still with the old mindset, and then we wonder why it doesn't succeed. We need to change our mindset and actually look at people's capabilities instead of people's age. Okay? So our success depends on the lens that we are looking at things through. Matter of fact, old age is actually something that we have conceived. Now the question is, how do we conceive a new old age? Because our current definition is getting in our way of better life. So with that said, think about these three things, and that is, if an older population would fully embrace their potential, how would that impact workforces? How would that impact the country? How would that impact caregiving? Unfortunately, if we were all healthy, that would be an industry that would become a dinosaur. Well, there's many of us that would still need care, so don't worry, okay? But the reality is, there's also a huge amount of money vested in people being ill. We need to shift that to a huge amount of money vested in people to be healthy, okay? And the impact is significant. So, with that said, let's talk about older people. How many of you are an older person? Well, you are older than somebody else, so let's get that out of the way right now, okay? With that said, the fact is that the aging population is as diverse as aging itself. And that presents an opportunity and a challenge. If we are delivering one-size-fits-all programs and services, we have a challenge because of the diversity of the population. Here's just some of the areas that actually cause the diversity of the population. That is, no two people actually age the exact same way, depending on their lifestyle, depending on their health issues, depending on their culture, depending on their upbringing, depending on medical interventions, depending on their resources. We can go on and on with the word depending on. You get the point. The next thing we know is that we all age at very different rates. That's why you see one person who is 72, who looks a little bit older than maybe he should, and another 75 who looks like a young man, or at least what we perceive as a young man. Now, if he was to have hair that was gray, we may look at that differently, but he doesn't. Okay, but these two individuals are close to the exact same age, but they age very differently. And there's 18 different physiological factors that impact the way we age, depending on whose research you look at. And we were talking about research last night, and that when one comes out, another one comes out. So, but what we know is that our health impacts significantly the rate at the rate that we age at, and how well we age. And I think we all know that. Anybody in here dispute that our health is impacted or impacting the way we age? No, thank you. Our challenge, though, is when we look at this population and the diversity of it, is that many of our health issues are not just one size fits all. They actually are individual and not singular. So we may have diabetes, and the diabetes may be because of obesity, and the obesity and diabetes causes us to be depressed, or maybe we're depressed, and because of that we're eating too much, becoming obese, and getting diabetes, and because of that I'm taking SSRI, is that correct? And it now has the potential of impacting me long-term as far as dementia goes. So, our customer. Yet, in many instances, in many arenas, we try and provide one-size-fits-all programs for these individuals and for ourselves. It's a losing battle. But we haven't even talked about the diversity in people's functional abilities. As you heard with the life curve, and also your physical abilities, and they change, and how you can actually be impacted by it. You have different levels of function that actually change throughout our life course, and we'll go into that in more detail. So when you put all of this together, your marketing message, your services that you deliver become a little bit more complex than just simply a booklet that somebody can take out of a drawer at a doctor's office and it tells everybody to do the same thing. And then when we speak about function, it's not just about physical function, it's also about cognitive function. It's about social function. How engaged am I in society? You know, I joke with my wife, listen, just close the door, kick me out, and I'll do something and come back an hour later a better person. You know, because just getting out of the house sometimes is actually a good thing for you. So as we move forward and we look at actually our perceptions of old age, and we look at the programs that we deliver, you know, we have to look beyond maybe what is being delivered right now. So a thought to ponder is, what is the lack of diversity if you lack it? I'm not saying you do, but what is the lack of diversity in programs, marketing, you know, everything that we do, how is it impacting you? Go back to what you do tomorrow and just sit down with your team if you have a team. If it's just yourself, have a conversation in the mirror and just simply say, what is the lack of diversity doing to our business? How is it impacting the services that we deliver? And how can we change that now? So, number 3, people. We love people. How many of you love people? How many of you hate people? How many of you just really couldn't care less? Probably most of us. It's like, oh no, not you again. So, people, our opportunity and our challenge when it comes to an aging population. Oh, some of the opportunities that are popping up now with new models, everything from life coaches to helping people manage changes that are occurring throughout their life, change management professions. Matter of fact, today, I can actually walk into your workplace and tell you if you're tired. I'm a fatigue risk manager. And I get paid for that. I know I'm making you tired right now, and I'm earning my money. You know, there are dementia coaches, there are all of these new things, but what's our problem? Our problem is, well, Charles is not our problem. Charles is our solution. Charles is over the age of 90. He's a professional rower. Now, how many of you know of Charles Euxter? He just had a book that came out, wonderful gentleman. He phoned me up one Saturday morning and said, Colin, I don't know how to do the accent. You know, I'd like to belong to your organization. I said, great, it's Saturday. He said, perfect day to start. And he's been a member of our organization for many years. As you can tell, he's living the life of Riley and having a good time. This is our challenge, though, and that is that it doesn't seem to matter what area that we talk about. When it comes to an older population, we have you know, less staff for geriatricians, we have less staff for you know, personal trainers, we have less staff for home care aides. The list goes on and on. So one of the things that I challenge all of you to do is to work with those who are around you to create a strategy to go out and get young people into what field you are in, or to re-engage with people who have left other fields to come into your field, because we need each other. One of the things that they're doing in China, because they don't have enough caregivers, is that they will actually have individuals go for a walk with you and bank their time when they're younger, so later on someone else will do that for them. In Japan, one of the things they're doing at Tai Chi classes in the morning is that they're incentivizing individuals to actually meet their neighbors and become friends. They'll actually give you a little stamp and you'll get you know, food or something like that for that. The main reason is because they don't have enough caregivers. They're trying new things that many of us might go, oh, that doesn't sound good. Why not? So we have a lack of expertise, lack of older people, lack of understanding, and in many instances, people with just really lousy attitudes who are working with many of the older population. Now, this person here may not have an attitude. It's technology, artificial intelligence, very effective? And is this going to be the caregiver of the future? Is this going to be the allied health professional? Because we can't find enough individuals. I put this there just so that you can see that it is not a real person, because it is so lifelike. Or is a robot, which this is, going to be your future boss? I was at a think tank in Germany last year on the workplace, and that was one of the comments that kept coming out, is that it's not going to be very long from now that you are actually going to be reporting to a robot. You may be currently reporting to a robot. You may be married to a robot, and you don't know it. So, 4 programs, and we'll just barrel through these here. This is the most exciting part. How do we help people to maintain their independence, improve their quality of life, and their functional abilities? That's what many of us do day in, day out. That's the key. Okay? Our goal is to rotate the dial from being in the position of ill health to better health. The problem is, a lot of times, we ourselves rotate it the other way and come to you because of that. So, you know, when we're looking at an older population, and a younger population, by the way, this is a lot of the young kids nowadays as well, same thing. So what are we talking about? What we're talking about is, what's it actually going to take to make it to an old age and age well? And, you know, these, as you read them, I'll tell you a little story about my grandmother, because how many of you can't read? I can read it if you know, parlez-vous français? Okay. And that is, you know, my grandmother actually fits most of these. She's 106 years old, as I mentioned. My grandfather died at the age of 60. So you think she's actually been without him for longer than she was, but he was her love of her life. And we thought that she was slipping away and that we would lose her right after him, which happens many times. And what ended up happening was she found hockey. She literally found hockey. And she would stay up late at night watching the Vancouver Canucks hockey team, and she would report to me all the statistics, everything. We would go to the hockey games, and she would be down in the pits there trying to get the hockey sticks. And, you know, you would see all these young kids kind of move to the side as she walked all the way through, and her thing was, I'll swear at them, I'll push my way through. What are they going to do? Hit a 100-year-old? Probably not. So anyway, she personified almost every single one of these. And to me, one of her greatest strengths, and something that most of us lose after a little while, I think, is just curiosity. She's just curious about life. So, you know, one of the things that we, I believe, as an industry need to become is more curious about our customers, about the people that we work with, about what makes them tick, and what aspires them to better health, and also aspires you to do what you do every single day. Because what you do is transformative, as Gordon was mentioning. Sometimes we don't get that appreciation, but it's okay to pat yourself on the back sometimes. Our challenge, though, is that a lot of times when we look at an older population, we tend to medicalize the population, and we're talking about chronic disease and chronic disease management on an ongoing basis. That's only half of the equation. The other half is, how do we actually help people to fulfill their desires? So, you know, yes, chronic disease is extremely important, but also, how do we actually help people to move beyond that? Because today, we know that most people over the age of 60, 65, at least in the US, which is not my home country, by the way, but, you know, 92% of people there have some form of chronic health issue. So you're no longer a cool person just to have a chronic health issue that you can say is yours. Okay? Everybody has one. The other part of that is most of us are thriving still with these health issues. That may be an indicator of why in 2015 the World Health Organization came out with their report on aging and health, and one of the key things that was in this wasn't about chronic health issues, chronic health issues, chronic health issues, but it was about what they call the new concept of functional ability, which for many of us in the occupational therapy world, in the physical therapy world, we've been talking about functional ability ever since you were born, or at least since you were born into your job. You know, at the ICAA, we've used that as our platform for the last 15 years. But what is key about this is that this can make it around the world at a policy level. That, to me, is significant. So, why function? Well, today, many of us, as I mentioned, are thriving with the various chronic health issues that we may have. If I was to probably ask most of you would put your hand up and you have one. 2, 3, come on, let's call it 4. You know, my dad's a drug dealer, by the way, but a legal one because he takes so many drugs because he has so many issues. And the doctors just keep giving him more, and when they don't, he goes to another doctor who doesn't question it, and they give him more again. He's got it down pat. He would benefit from a geriatrician who would actually work with him to reduce that, which is actually what happened. And they cut his drugs in half. Okay, so, but here's why function is important, and whether it's falls management, actual chronic disease management, independence, ability to work. How many of you would like to remain independent? Let's see your hands. How many of you want to age well? Okay, how many of you actually want to date? No, okay, you can put your hand down, sir. Not now. Okay. My point is that all of us, if you ask people, want to age well. So do our customers. Okay? Our role is to help them do that on a societal level. Hospitals are an amazing place, but they're just not the place that most of us should be to live a well life. We need to actually look at what can help with that. Now, this is Dr. Alex Galesh's model of functional decline over a life course. And as you'll see, many of the issues, well, you won't see, I'll tell you, many of the issues that used to kill us, now we're actually living with diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. Many of us have had open heart surgery, stents, all of these different things that, weren't available at the turn of the 1900s. Can you imagine somebody telling you you're going to have an open heart surgery, in the back of a chuck wagon? Would have been hard. Anyway, so here's what happens is, when you're young, you're invincible. Anyone never been invincible? You just do some stupid stuff. Really stupid stuff. I won't tell you, but it's very stupid. And then around midlife, many of us, if we've built our reserves, which is a challenge now with some of the younger kids, around midlife, we begin to become inactive and engaged in things like work, families, man, they get in the way, don't they? I could have lived a much better life without those kids. Get them out of here. No. They were so enriching. So around midlife, between the ages of 35 and 70, roughly, if you are an inactive person, you will lose close to about 50% of your strength and 75% of your power. Now, what the heck does that actually mean? So, if you were at the session yesterday, forgive me, and I'll show you this. Charles, you're just sitting there, man. I love it. I'm going to use Charles. Well, I'm not really going to use him, but I'm going to have Charles hop on me. So, I'm going to give you an example, and Bob, Andrew's out of there now. Yeah. Bob's son, Andrew, who is 6 foot what?
6.
6'6". I didn't realize that when he was on my back. Did this many years ago for me. Okay, Charles, yes. Okay. So, but hang on tight. Not too tight though. We just met. So anyway, think about this. Okay, if Charles weighs the same as I do, which he doesn't, why I chose him because he's a light little man here. But if I walk around all day with Charles on my back, and Charles weighs the exact same as I do, and I've lost about 50% of my strength. How are you doing? Do you think it would impact my quality of life? Do you think I'm now beginning to put chairs in the way? That's okay, don't pick up the chair, Charles. Do you think I would start putting my legs out a little bit wider to stabilize myself? Okay, thank you, Charles. Let's give Charles a hand. Sorry I didn't come over there, you know, it would have been a good, you know, Twitter moment or... But what you saw is roughly me losing about 50% of my strength. So when we look at basic physical activity programs, especially strength programs, and being able to reverse a certain amount of what Charles is all about, it is transformative, but most of us, as you probably talked about earlier today, you know, don't realize this until it's too late. My dad, here, at the age of 60, did nothing. I told him, Dad, I go all around the world. People actually listen to me. And I'm going to show you what's going to happen. So I broke this out. I said, you're here. Now, you're doing this as you're beginning to walk into our house at, you know, a birthday party. You know, you're here. You're going to end up here if you do absolutely nothing. So, of course, I am his child. So what do I know? Nothing. Let's say that out loud. Come on, it's got to be sweet. Nothing. And you know nothing. Isn't it true, though? You know, he listens to the gardener, which is probably why he has so many drugs around. But anyway, I think their names are Cheech, John. No, anyway. But so what happens here is that he has lost his strength, done nothing about it. And now he is in a wheelchair all day long and bedridden in a long-term care community. He doesn't have to be there, but he made the choice of actually doing nothing. That's what happens when we do nothing. Now, if we get Charles off of us and we actually do something, we can regain, the research shows, a 1996 landmark study out of Tufts University in Boston shows that, you know, well past the age of 90, that we can regain a very significant amount of strength that we have lost within a short period of time, which, by the way, is transformative, and that's what we do. It's kind of cool being, you know, God. Okay, maybe we're not there yet. But with artificial intelligence, who knows? So, here's our challenge, though. We keep thinking physical. And it's much more than just physical. It's also about cognitive. It's about social function. It's about spiritual. It's about all the different areas of health and well-being. You know, one of the challenges that we face, though, is that many of the people who've gone through training haven't been trained well to deal with a person who is, you know, in mid-process of cognitive decline. So now they're coming in, and you were saying, now can you do that for me? Come back. Sorry, what was that? You wanted to know that again? Okay, good. Oh, and, oh, you want to know that again? Okay, and again, and again. That's my wife's mother. We'll go out for dinner. She'll forget what she ordered, and she will ask 5 times, roughly, before she actually orders it. Now, you can either get really mad at the person or be where that person is in their life and understand what they're going through. It's a much better place the second, okay? But how do we work with individuals like that? Are we trained to work with individuals like that? We could have someone coming in that is highly, you know, capable and fit, but has lost their cognitive abilities, or someone that is very frail and dependent who is sharp as a tack. It's like a jigsaw puzzle when we're looking at the older population. So you guys should be able to whip this off, but this is always a fun couple, 3 questions, and that is, by the age of 80, what percentage of people cannot lift this bowling ball? Come on, let's hear it. I'm coming over there. This is like a game show. Yes, ma'am, you tell me. No pressure. You got 2 seconds.
50%.
50%. Okay, anyone else? 80, but not. It's a pessimistic crowd here. You told me there were optimists. By the way, we can only be optimists about growing older because the other way of going about things isn't really very productive, is it? So, 46% of people cannot lift that bowling ball. Now, depending on who your stats are, this is from the CDC in the US, okay? 46%. Well, you know, if we have a lot of inactive people, it kind of stands to reason, doesn't it? What about the number of people who cannot walk once around a 400-meter track without getting tired? I am coming back to you again, ma'am. Yes, here we are.
50%? Yeah, I'm going to go for 50%.
50%. Okay. You wanted to say something, didn't you? I could see you a little bit longer, a little bit more. Okay, here we are. 49%. So you were very close. Why is this important? Because if you can't make it around that track without getting tired, things begin to get a little bit tougher and tougher. And one of the reasons why, Sarah and their team is building that into what you do. According to Dr. Walter Bortz, if you can't do that, or you can't lift 10 pounds, it's the start of the decline downwards. And I will ask you now, because I realize that when I show the slide, the number comes up as well, so that kind of takes away from the excitement. What percentage of people cannot do this without an issue? How many of you like gardening? Yet in the US, in Canada, and I don't know about over here, many of the gardening environments in a retirement community, a care home, are built up. Why? Because 66% of us cannot get down and up off the ground without having some challenge. Now, if 1 out of 3 people fall each and every year over the age of 65 and 50% fall again within a 12-month period, it's a problem if you can't get back up. Problems need solutions. Solutions are opportunities for change. As this gentleman is finding out, doesn't matter how old you are, the impact of function is that you can actually find your Hot Wheels under the fridge, because that's where they go each and every time. And it doesn't matter who you're playing with, that's where they end up. It also minimizes disability and rising costs of disease and care. Why? Because function really, to function, comes back to being healthy and fit and so forth. I'll let you read this from Margaret Chan while I get a little glass of water, if I may. I feel like one of these rock stars, that is on stage and just sweating and dripping, or the Baptist preachers. Amen! Do I hear that? Okay, not yet. What is the impact of a loss of function? Thank you. Thank you. Because what have we talked about? We've talked about potential. So if you can't function, you have an issue. You lose your potential, the potential to live your life, to do the things you want to do, how you want to do them, when you want to do them. There's some really basic things to help us. We all know what they are. I don't need to tell you about that. It's our customers who we need to inspire to actually make change happen. It's kind of hard to inspire somebody who doesn't want to be inspired, which is what my father was. So our job is to try and inspire people to inspire themselves. Maybe we can use technology to serve the diversity of the population and to inspire people. How many of you have a smartphone or a cell phone? And you just look at it all the time. You've really wanted to look at it while we're speaking, but you have been, I can see some of you like this, just gripping onto the chair because you want to be doing that. Well, that kind of passion is what we need to inspire if we can utilize technology for the better. Today we're using phones. There's an app out of USC Davis in California that will actually tell you when you're going to die. Isn't that exciting? Colin, Milner, expiration date. But the reality is, they have a marketing problem. The intention is very good, and that is that if I can tell you your expiration date and what you can actually do to change that, maybe changing the marketing will help motivate you. But die! You read this and you are going to, could you imagine it's beeping off of the page, you are dead. right now you haven't been doing the stuff. So technology can be positive and negative. It can be, we can hook ourselves with all of the self-management tools out there. But we did a think tank not that long ago in Washington, D.C. with a variety of scientists. And one of the things that they came to the conclusion of was that when you have to put something on, like a watch, which is this little thing over here, sometimes people forget to do that. They don't put it on. But if you don't have to forget, hopefully you're not walking outside naked, and you are putting on a shirt, a pants, a bra, or underwear, and that has biometrics in it, and it can actually give you all the feedback that you need, maybe that's when wearables will actually become full-on mainstream and actually be of value to the population as a whole as a new health platform. Will it take a little while for us to get there? Probably. Can wearables go beyond just simply chronic health issues and health management? Absolutely. But the reality is we're not there yet. Young or old, though, we're close in the numbers. So don't think because I'm older I'm not going to actually use it. However, the model needs to go beyond just the physical. There's a lot of people who have mental health issues, and some of them I actually cause. How many of you know that by the year 2020, the number 2 leading cause of death and disability will be depression? But what are we doing about it? Look at all the things that we have to help people with cardiovascular health issues. But what are we doing around depression? Come in and see me. I'm your therapist. There's a little stigma to that. That's why we call them shrinks. With all due respect. We have a challenge. But could you help people create a balanced lifestyle? It's all how you position things, how you market things, integrating it. But are we helping people to actually connect themselves spiritually and in different areas? There's so many different opportunities. Remember I mentioned about the Japanese? This was the slide for that, so we don't need to look at it. Or just simply going outside. And you have a beautiful area of the world. Helping people to go outside and connect if they're not. And one of the challenges we have with the built environment is many people are staying indoors instead of going outdoors. They have a trend in the spa industry called earthing. I thought when I first heard it that you were actually just digging up earth, but it's actually going out, taking your shoes off and connecting once again with the outside world. So, we're going to barrel through these very quickly because I think I'm running behind. Well, I'm fine. You guys are fine? No, you're already sleeping. Okay, products. Our big challenge, well, we have a lot of big challenges, but the evidence shows that we don't have enough products and services that are being developed and delivered for an older population. And I would actually like to challenge us to think differently about that. Take that word older population out of that and say we don't have enough products and services that are developed for inclusion of all populations. Because if you were calling something just for old people, odds are probably not interested. Or many of us, never used to be us, are interested. I mean, my dad, he has bifocals. When I went in and the optometrist basically said, you need bifocals, I looked there and said, I'm not old, what are you talking about? And then she looked over and said, but over here we have progressives. Exact same thing, just different name. I'll go with the progressives, thank you very much. Same thing. It's just how we go about it. So with that said, we have a big issue, and one of the reasons that we're actually not getting products and services is, to be frank, people just simply haven't thought about how to or what to deliver. So just asking yourself why, what's needed, and how to go about it. It really is no secret in regards to that. Do it. I think Nike said it perfectly. Just do it. I can show you all the statistics, but the bottom line is lack of thought. With that said, there's the opportunity. All of those different areas need a new model. your area included. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to do about it? Here's a very simple example of a product that went from being just clinical to on the shelves of grocery stores everywhere. Ensure. I remember growing up as a kid, it tasted awful. And it was for when you visited your mother or grandmother at the hospital. Now, put a little sugar in and away you go. It's being promoted because of protein, for older adults to help them increase their muscle and keep their muscle. Products and services all around the wellness area. If you're interested, I'll be happy to send you the slides so that you can actually dive further into the wellness opportunity, which is a $2 trillion opportunity, by the way. Number 6, promotions. This to me is where the road, or the, what did they say, whatever hits the road, the smack hits, or no, that's drugs, sorry. It hits the road. This is where either you make or break it, where you inspire people to make change or not. And, what we see is that as society is rethinking the way we age, the question is, are you? Here's our challenge, is that most people think of people who are promoting products and services to them, whether it's through advertising, whether it's through marketing, whether it's through your website. Basically, they look at what you're doing and give you a big F for failing. Now, why is that? Because sometimes they think you're patronizing, and I say us in general, patronizing, stereotypical, focused on just a specific age, or that you're just not investing. They don't see themselves in advertising. Over the last 10 years, the level of investment in advertising has been a 0 increase for people over the age of 50. And it's a whopping 5% of all marketing dollars are spent in people over the age of 50. So we are invisible. So what can you do to help people become visible? Here's why we get an F. This is how marketers actually think marketing to an older population is cute. It's not, it's insulting. So if you are just simply presenting your products and services through a positive website, you are way ahead of the rest. That's why 39% of the population don't even think we want their business. Okay? So there are 2 marketing opportunities I think that are low-hanging fruit for you, and one is that 82% of people actually do exercise 1 day a week. How do we convert those people to doing it more than 1 day a week? And I'm speaking about older people, learning the terminology that actually will empower them to respond now. And the other is women, which happens to be most of you in this room. And did you know, I'm sure you do, that you have the control? Ask any man. We'll tell you. 80 to 90% of all decisions are made in the household by women. Women have $20 trillion worldwide. Women live longer. Women also are much wealthier and much poorer. Women have great health and ill health. So it's all across the board. But at the end of the day, the wealth transfer is coming down. Your husband, unfortunately, probably won't live as long as you. So you'll be able to meet some young stud. You'll have some money. You'll have a great time. Thank you very much. That's the end of the session. No. But that is unfortunately, or fortunately, in many instances, what the scenario will be, and that is that women are agents of change compared to men, and men just simply want to deny that. So what is your strategy to work with older women to influence other generations and their spouses? Do you have one? If you don't, why not? Then the last couple is places, okay? And that is, how do we create places that people actually want to live in, move to, cities that are wellness-oriented, health-oriented, places like this? Would you want to live there? It's more of a playground than a city. Building for all generations is really what we're talking about, in making cities and environments age-friendly. Age-friendly being for all ages, not just old age. This is Joe Coughlin's Gerontopia. I encourage you to actually go online and look it up. It's a lot more complicated, as you can tell, but it's really cool when you look at it. Number 8, simply put, there are the resources there within this group to pay for many of the services that we think should be covered. The question is whether we actually want individuals to pay for those services or not. The longevity economy is the 3rd largest economy in the world right now if we were to compare it against the others. And there's a 40% difference between the disposable income in the older population versus the younger population. So, and older adults outspend their younger counterparts in almost every single category. So there's resources there for some private pay services, for other areas. It's funny that, especially where we are, in the US, we tend to give the biggest discounts to the people with the most money. Never used to be that way, but it is that way now. And then, last but not least, the grand finale, policy, which for those of you that are in the governmental end of things or running your business or your operation, if you haven't heard about it, you may want to check it out, and it is the Decade of Healthy Aging from the World Health Organization. There's a variety of initiatives going on, and their goal is to improve people's function between now and the year 2030. It would be nice if we could improve it right now. But by countries signing on to this, the question becomes, is there more resources that could potentially be available to help you in your area? If you're a local council person or your mayor or anything like that doesn't know about this, make them aware of it. Talk to them about how the world is changing and they need to help that change come about and why. Other practices that, we need an accelerated response, integrated approaches, reallocating of funds. There's so many different ones, but what you need is this. And, that's my little plug for all of you, is that what the world needs is more of you and more of these services that can be delivered day in, day out. So I'm going to leave you with 2 slides, and I want you to actually absorb these slides if you would, and that is, if we were to just simply look at the top 5 chronic health issues, it's expected to extract $47 trillion globally by the year 2020. What can we do to impact that? That is significant. Approximately 40% of those costs are not in this room. Business, product services, housing, all of these different things. There's a ripple effect to ill health beyond healthcare. And just look at the one at the very bottom, and that is, if you look at the UK, this was in 2002, it was an $8.2 billion impact once indirect costs were put into place. Physical inactivity. So just simply getting people to become more physically active can have a significant impact. But you also need the resources to make that happen. And the only way to actually make that happen is to ask for them. So, with that said, the question is, what now? Where do you go? Only you can answer that question. But as my friend Dr. Joseph Coughlin said, all the pieces are here. The demand is now, and the opportunity started yesterday. So what we do with that is up to you. Thank you very much.